Hello, everybody. Sorry, I just realized I was muted. Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight's first ever community conversation regarding police services here in Ojai. We are here live virtually and we'll be on Zoom and Channel 10 here in Ojai. And so thank you, everybody, for adjusting with us. We had planned to do this live and in person as our first ever community conversation and to have that kickoff meeting and be at the bowl, but with some last minute changes, we ended up being virtual. We will be recording this meeting. We'll make this available on our different, on our website and our TV channel, a couple other sources. So we'll try to make sure that anybody who wants to see it can see it, but we thank you for attending tonight's meeting. Tonight's meeting is going to be, we're going to try to keep it casual and keep it focused on hearing from the community. Police Chief Jose Rivera and I are each going to have a couple of comments at the start, but the goal tonight is to get feedback from the community and hear what the community has to say. So we will try to make sure that we leave plenty of time for that and that we answer any questions. If we get a lot of questions we can't get to, we'll make sure to send answers and responses and feedback on those. We'll also talk about next steps on some of the next few conversations and the next couple of events that we're looking to try to keep our reaching out and focusing on our public safety. And so I do want to point out this is not a formal city council meeting. We didn't schedule this as a formal city council meeting because we didn't want to have to follow a script, so to speak, and have limited time for the public to ask questions or interact. And so tonight's meeting is not a council meeting, but the city council members are in attendance, and I know that they're listening to the community. And then one of the next steps we'll talk about is we are planning to have a kind of a report back to the city council in February, talking about what we hear tonight and providing that to the city council. So with that, I want to briefly start, and I'll introduce the chief here in a moment. But I wanted to briefly start by giving some information on what we're looking to do here. And I think one of the things we are trying to do is we want to start focusing on community engagement and community interaction. We want to be transparent and clear to the community with what our goals related to public safety are and some of the things we're working on. And so with that, I'll just start off by introducing Chief Jose Rivera. And bear with us here virtually. Chief, are you?
Here I am. I'm just, I don't think I'm on video though.
Did you want to be on video or are you?
It doesn't matter. It's up to you. Possibly that way people at least get to see who I am and recognize me.
I agree. So let me see if we can make that happen. So while we're doing that, let me
hey, give, Chief, you should be able to start your video now.
RIT a chance to do that. So I'll introduce you in a moment while we're waiting. I wanted to start by going over a few goals that we've started to develop for this coming year. Again, I will keep this brief, but these are the types of things we want to get some feedback.
Here I am. Good evening, everyone.
All right, let's go ahead. I'd rather introduce you now. So Chief, do you want to say a couple words to get us started here?
Sure. First of all, thank you, James, for accommodating me with the virtual meeting. I've been out of the station for the last week due to an illness, but I really appreciate it. I know this is very important, which I wanted to be involved in, which this really helped out. And if I could just kind of make a few comments, and then we can kind of go into some feedback and things like that. You know, our top priority has always been and will continue to be the protection of life, property, and the suppression of crime. Here in Ojai, we've been very, very fortunate to have very low crime rates. These low rates are a result of the relationship between the community that we serve and the patrol deputies that are out there patrolling the community. Without the support of the community and our city leaders, we wouldn't be as successful as we are keeping our crime rates low. So, you know, thank you to everybody who's out there, who's interacting with the deputies, calling us whenever they need help. I really appreciate it. So our goals for 2022 and those of the Ojai Police Station, like James mentioned, will be more focused on community involvement. And when I say community involvement, that's not saying it's the deputies, you know, involved in the community. It kind of goes both ways between the deputies in the community with the deputies, and also our city government. City government plays a big part. It's almost like a triangle. You know, there's three components in order to be successful here. So the first step is this community conversation, this community forum. This is a huge step. It's an opportunity for folks to, you know, participate, provide their ideas, let us know what we're doing good, what we can do better to serve you. It's always good to hear from the folks that are out there and see what it is we can come up with to do our jobs a lot better than what we're doing now. So it's an opportunity for the public to kind of weigh in. So I'm very fortunate to have this, James, for you to put this event together. I'm very optimistic for 2022. I believe it will bring a lot of change that'll include more, hopefully more of a normal way of life for our communities. So we can kind of get back to hopefully the way, or to some degree, back to the way things were before. It's an opportunity for to work together now that the city's kind of opening up a little bit. We're starting to see more events. 2021, we were very fortunate where we saw some city events come back. The 3rd of July, what an awesome turnout. All the streets were lined with folks, and they were all having a good time. We did our Ojai Day, the Centennial, you know, all great events that brought the community together. We're very fortunate to be part of those events as well. So I look forward to more of those events here in the city. I'm looking forward to continuing a great working relationship with the city manager, James Vega. We've worked hand in hand over the last couple of years on various things. So I'm looking forward to this new year. I think it's going to be full of good ideas and a very positive year for us. I'd like to go over, just talk real briefly about some of the things that I'm kind of looking at doing this next new year. One of those improvements I'm looking at is creating the city's first beat coordinator. So normally our beat coordinators are assigned to the county areas, they're senior deputies, and the city doesn't have a senior deputy assigned to it, they're all deputies. So we've given an opportunity to select a deputy to, aside from his normal patrol duties, to be that community liaison type person who the public can actually email or call whenever they have a question about something, a nuisance, a public concern, anything like that, where the deputy can actually take the time to look into the particular issue and try to work with the person to resolve it. And if not, look for other ways, other entities that might be able to help us out to resolve that particular issue. We're starting to work also, again, with the school district to reestablish our relationships between the students and the deputies. We had an event over at Matilaha not too long ago, where it was kind of like a career day. We had quite a few sheriff's resources there that participated as well. The kids had a blast. So we're looking forward to doing that maybe again in the future. Maybe at Nordoff might be a good spot. I'm also looking at maybe establishing some foot patrols in the downtown area. Last year we used the bicycle patrols, but I don't think it had the effect that I was looking for. So I'm looking at maybe establishing some foot patrols in the downtown area, the business area. So there's deputies walking around and interacting with the business owners, the community, and they're not going call to call. They're basically assigned for that area for X amount of hours. And I'm going to focus on the busiest day of the week to kind of help with any issues. I know there's been complaints from the business owners about the skateboarders, people on bicycles, and it is a dangerous situation, especially when you have folks walking around and you got kids on skateboards, going really fast, or on a bicycle. It could create a bad situation. So we're looking at maybe doing that this year. Like I said, I'm looking forward to a very positive year. I like to really focus on what the community has to say, especially any ideas that they have to make our jobs of serving the community a lot better and more positive.
Thank you, Chief. And I see we did get our first question. I'm going to give a very brief introduction, and then we'll start going through some of those questions. But we're going to either ask people to raise their hands if they want to speak once we get to that point, or if you want to start submitting some questions in the Q&A section by clicking the Q&A button, you can start doing that, and we'll get to those in a couple of minutes. So, thank you, Chief, and I'm really appreciative. The Chief has been right on the same page every time we've talked about focusing on increasing our communication and being out in the community. We talk about how we're itching to do that more and more, and this latest COVID surge is still making that a challenge, but this is kind of the start of doing that, granted virtually, but we're going to start doing more and more of these and try to make sure that we're hearing from the community and the community is also hearing back from us. Something the Chief said that I say a lot as well is, I don't claim to be perfect, and I don't think really any government agency is perfect. And so I'm always looking for how to improve. And I think that that there's always the ability to improve. So what we're looking for here tonight is to ask the community, what you're seeing, what we can improve on, and to have that conversation. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about quickly, a lot of my goals are in line, and one of the things we'll be doing is we'll take some of these goals and some of the feedback and take that to the City Council, who again are watching tonight, but are not participating or won't be speaking, as it's not a noticed council meeting. And so we will be taking these to them, and we'll have some conversations about goals and different options for this year. And so a couple of goals that I believe that the community is looking for, but again, we're here tonight to get some feedback on this, is really three simple goals. One is to improve or maintain our high levels of public safety. And I think there's a few areas there, and that would be maintaining our low crime rates, improving traffic safety, and being responsive to neighborhood and community quality of life issues. So that would be one goal for us in this coming year. Number two would be improving and maintaining the public trust by focusing on communication and transparency. And so, like I said, tonight is one step towards doing that. Another couple of steps we've already taken is that the chief and I, starting this year, implemented regular standing meetings rather than just meeting when we need to, which the goal of having those regular standing meetings is making sure that we are working together to get that information to the community. We're also looking at increasing participation in our community events by, and this is just in general, we started this with Ojai Davis. We had the Sheriff's Department, we had fire representatives, we had CERT representatives, we had city booths for information. And so we're looking at trying to start engaging more at those events. We're also planning to have regular reports at city council meetings, regular police-related reports. It's something that we had done in years past, but haven't done recently. So that's something we're looking at doing. The community conversation, which is tonight. And then looking at doing some things like some community surveys and creating clear goals and objectives that the community will know and hold us accountable for. So we also, as part of that goal, we want to increase our transparency in everything we do. I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, but one of the key things we've been working on for a couple of years to try to increase our transparency is updating our contract with the Sheriff's Department. And then, like we said, having some regular reports out to the City Council and participating in those community events. So third goal is to improve or maintain the community-focused policing and engagement. And Chief alluded to a couple of the things we've talked about, such as foot patrols and those types of things where the officers as well will be, really interactive with the community. We also are putting a focus on social media releases and more what's called non-confrontational contacts, which are the types of things we mentioned earlier, and other events like Coffee with the Chief and Ask an Officer type events. And so those are the three goals I mentioned a moment ago. I know that we have received questions, and I expect there are a lot of questions about our ongoing contract update situation. I'll speak to that briefly, and of course, if anybody asks any questions, we'll try our best to respond. But just like I said earlier, as government agencies, I believe that we can do. We should always be trying to improve. We have a 40-year-old contract currently with the Sheriff's Department. For our most important and most expensive expense, we should value that enough that we would update the contract more often than every 40 years. So we've been working aggressively to do that. We've had several meetings over the last couple of years. It is frustrating. I have a lot of experience updating contracts, and they typically don't take this long, especially an important contract like this. So that is an issue that we're working on this year so that we can have a clear contract with clear community-focused objectives that we can be transparent and clear with our community on. And so for us, we have a responsibility to regularly look into that. We're doing that at this time. I already saw a couple of questions about costs and things like that. I don't want to get bogged down in detail today, but I'll just note that our position is fairly simple. We're 25% of the population in the Ojai Valley, but we pay 40 or 50% of most of the costs. I believe that was based on kind of a handshake deal 40 years ago, and I think that now's the time to kind of correct that. And so that is the key issue. One of the key issues, like I said, the other key issues is trying to get some of these community-based objectives into the contract and just having an updated contract that everybody's comfortable with. So that leads to, we are performing an assessment of that contract. And in February, we're going to have a council meeting where we'll have that assessment, and we'll also have the feedback come back from this meeting at that time as well for us to talk about some goals and objectives. So with that, we want to open this conversation up to anyone who has any questions or comments. We have some email comments, we have some written comments. I think I'll start by offering up, if anybody raises their hand, we'll go ahead and start there. And so it looks like we have some people raising their hands. So give us a little slack with the virtual issue, but I think this will work. So looks like Laura Ward is the first person with her hand up. And so Laura, you should be on.
Hello, this is Laura Ward. I am the publisher at the Ojai Valley News. Thanks for having this meeting and letting me speak. How do we imagine community policing? I envision a fair and just community police force, but one that's also fair in what it charges our Ojai residents. Ojai shouldn't pay twice what other county residents pay. Ojai residents should not pay the same as Fillmore, who has 2 times the crime of Ojai and 10 times the violent crime of Ojai. I believe that the structure of the payments should be looking at the Ojai station service area. The Ojai city, that service area is about 30,000 people, the people who live in the valley. And as Mr. Vega said, that's 25%. We're about 25% of the population, about 25% of the area. The police are not serving based on county lines, nor should they. They should not be saying, oh, no, now I'm out of the city, now I'm in the city. They serve the whole valley. So why not look at the whole service area of that Ojai station, calculate the cost for that whole station, and then attribute the portion that goes to Ojai, not on faulty documents that were later shown that we do not make more calls. That was a complete red herring, not true. But based on our population, our size, our physical size, and then have us pay our portion and the county pay the rest. I don't understand why the sheriff has been so defensive when it comes to the financial issues here, when no one is asking the sheriff to take a pay cut and no one's asking anyone to go home. We're simply asking the county to pay their fair share and have it divvied up in a fair way. So as far as my vision, if the police cannot, if the sheriff's office cannot find a way to take away 500,000 or more from this over $3 million budget, I'd be in favor of us developing a new Ojai police force to replace the sheriff's service. But I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't see why over money that we would need to do that, but we should, if it doesn't make sense, to keep going forward.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for the comments. I do see the sheriff on the video, and so I will offer up the opportunity to comment on that if you would like to at this time. I guess if you'd like to comment, if you want to raise your hand. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. You're on.
Thank you, Sheriff Bill Ayub. I listened to the comments from Ms. Ward, Mr. Vega, and Chief Rivera. Thank you for holding this forum this evening. We have had a number of discussions about costs related to police services in Ojai. As many of you know, Ojai had a police department in its earlier days. In 1979, it was looking to save money and came to the sheriff's office looking just for that purpose. And a contract was formed with the sheriff's office at that time, which enabled the city to save money from its costs related to its own police force. And we've had that contract for 40 years, and have taken ownership of the city and and taken great pride in providing high-level police services, driving crime down over those 4 decades to incredibly low levels now. And it hasn't been accidental, it hasn't been environmental, it's been done through hard, diligent work of dedicated men and women that take ownership in policing the city of Ojai. And we do that to this very day. And Chief Rivera is leading the men and women up there and taking a good deal of responsibility in doing that. The staffing for the Ojai Police Department has always been in such a way that it was a standalone. So the county has police resources in the unincorporated areas, which are vast expanses of territory, in some cases sparsely populated, in some cases south of Ojai and southwest, fairly densely populated. But those deputies are responsible for patrolling all the way to the summit, up to Lions Camp, to the upper reaches behind Lake Casitas, and down to the northern part of Ventura Avenue. So they're spread very thin. There's 3 deputies that cover that entire turf of area. And the concept of eliminating the policing model that we currently have, where we treat our contract cities as a standalone municipal police department, and consolidating that with county patrol resources is an incredible departure from what we've done for decades throughout the county. And I get that Ojai is different. Mr. Vega and council members and I have spoken about this, and I do understand that. But we have to have continuity in the way that we do billing throughout the community and throughout the county. And so it does pose challenges for us. Currently, if we were to, we have 2 options. One would be to reduce services. That would be taking away police officers, patrolmen from the city of Ojai, and then supplanting them with the county deputies that are already spread very thin throughout the unincorporated areas. The other option would be to simply have those deputies that are in the county area come into the city and augment a lower level of staffing on an as-needed basis. And that takes away that scant resource that the unincorporated area currently has now policing it. So it's either a shift of cost to the county, or in essence a defunding of policing in the Ojai Valley. Neither of those is tenable for me as the service provider. We have a very high level of service that we provide as a matter of routine in the communities that we serve. It's why we have the lowest crime rates in the county for the cities that we police. Lowest crime rates in the state, if you look at county crime across jurisdictions. And so it's something we're proud of, and something that we just aren't willing to compromise on in terms of reducing our public safety services. So I understand financial concerns. I run a $300 million operation, and every dollar is important to me. And I understand that it is to the city's leadership as well. But public safety to me is more important than a dollar figure. And that's just something I can't compromise on as a sheriff. So I do appreciate this forum, and I'm excited to hear from other members of the community with their concerns. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And we'll, I do want to get to the other comments. I do want to just take a moment and respond to that quickly. I know the sheriff and I have had a lot of conversations about this, but I've made my case that the statement that we can't allow costs to shift to the county is, it doesn't answer the basic question of whether the city's been subsidizing the county for 40 years. And I think that as we dug into it, it looks pretty convincing we have. And I think that can be rectified pretty simply with simply not reducing any officers, but instead of charging the city 50% for positions, charging us our population share, which is 25%. And that would not have any impact on service. I'm sure the county would not be happy paying, its fair share, but I think Ojai's been paying its fair share and then some for 40 years. And so I know we've had that conversation several times, but I want to make clear, the city hasn't asked for, a defunding. It's asking the county to pay its fair share and the city to pay its fair share. Also, the contract is 40 years old. I know that the county's position is it's legally sufficient. My position is it talks about who owns the typewriters, which it's hard for me to think that a contract talking about whether the city or the county owns typewriters is a contract that it means anything anymore. We don't have typewriters. The contract doesn't make any sense. And that's just one example. But the contract it doesn't reflect reality at this point. And so, government code requires contracts to be updated every 5 years. We've requested that. I haven't really had a real response of why we can't get that. So it is frustrating. It's something that for us, we need to make sure we're doing our job as city officials and looking at these things. But it is it's an agreement between two parties. So we'll have to work with the sheriff's department on that. And then just last point is just a reminder for everybody is Ojai does pay the highest per capita cost for policing in the county by a large sum. I think we're about double Camarillo and Thousand Oaks. So it does feel like we've carried the burden for several years. So and if you'd like to reply to that, Sheriff, you can. If not, we can move on. Okay. All right. And so we do have a lot of questions, or we're starting to get a lot of questions. I don't see any other hands raised at this point. If anybody wants to speak, we'll keep an eye on that. We do have some questions. We'll try to respond to them, and we'll keep feedback on these, or we'll keep track of these and make sure we report them back. And so we'll try to respond to them if we can. A user asked the question, and I think Chief, maybe this is something you can speak to a little bit. Why do we need more patrol if crime is low? And I know that it's complicated, but can you speak to that a little bit?
It does get complicated, but we have 2 patrol deputies that patrol the entire city, and 2 deputies to me would be the minimum standard for deputies to respond to calls. Many calls require two deputies, such as domestic related calls where there could be a chance of violence when the deputy does show up. We send one officer there, and there could be a chance that he is injured or involved in an altercation, and his nearest backup might be one of the county units. So it's always good to have 2 deputies, responding to calls such as these. Another reason is if for whatever reason, one deputy has to take somebody into custody and drive them down to Ventura. And with 2 deputies patrolling the city, you still have 1 deputy to respond to calls, especially emergency calls, which is very important. If you have a loved one or somebody who is in danger and they need somebody to respond right away, I expect a deputy to respond right away and deal with the situation. So to me, having 2 deputies is very important to patrol the city at any given time.
Yeah, and I think this question might have come in, Chief, when you mentioned the foot patrols, for example. Mm-hmm. And I think the idea of the foot patrols is actually kind of creating that connection with the community where Correct. It's not just the officer driving by on Ojai Avenue, it's actually walking through parks and through business. Yeah.
So what I find important, or what I find about foot patrols is that if you have 1 or 2 deputies in a given area, like the downtown area there, in that they're responsible just to patrol that area on foot. So they have the time to interact with the merchants, community, They're able to, discuss more in depth what affects these merchants, what issues they're having, the quality of life issues that they're having there within the business district. I think it's important to have that versus a patrol deputy who responds to a call there. And once they finish up the call, they've got to go because they have another call pending. And they don't have that quality time to spend there. So I think the foot patrols are going to be really good for that area. And not only the business community, I like to get them into the parks as well. Levy Park, it's always good to do foot patrols through there. Levy's very, very active. So it's good to see the deputies out there on foot. The community can come up, ask them questions, whatever they like. And engage them in conversation. So it's a good positive thing.
Thank you. And I see the next question is, can you explain more about the community liaison position and what their role will be within the community and the police department?
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this. Not only does it give a deputy an opportunity to do a little bit more community service, but it gives the community an opportunity to kind of engage in the deputy and talk about what issues are affecting their neighborhood. Whether it be, a nuisance down the street, they might have a question about something that they're not really sure about, and they don't really know where to go. They can go to him. The deputy can either, answer the question for him or refer him to another entity, either a city or a county entity. But he will have the responsibility to answer emails from the community, phone calls from the community. He'll be in touch on social media as well. We're going to look at ramping up our Ojai Police Facebook page. I don't think that thing's been used for quite a while. So we're going to update that. Get a new picture up and utilize that for the liaison deputy to engage the community, also provide information to the community. Crime prevention. I got to tell you, in the beginning of the year, our grand thefts and petty thefts were kind of almost out of control. We were getting a lot of vehicle thefts, property taken from unlocked vehicles. And we started utilizing social media. We did some public service videos on how to prevent thefts and things like that. And by the middle of the year, our numbers on grand thefts, petty thefts started to drop, which is good. So that's another thing he will be doing as well, putting out social media information on crime prevention.
Awesome, thank you. And that is the one, the chief told me about that recently, and I'm very excited about that as well. I think it just gives the little personal touch, I think. And so the next question, I'm not sure what it means, but in the interest of trying to read them all and not skip, do you think it would be valuable to have public training on how to escape a car trunk? I'm not sure.
Okay, I understand the question. Back, we did have a situation, I believe it was back in August, where we had a young lady who was kidnapped, thrown into a trunk of a vehicle down in, I believe it was in Miners Oaks, and it ended up out in Oakview. And she was able to open up the trunk from the inside as it was traveling. And one of the a very alert deputy saw this going on and was able to turn around and deal with the situation. So it's probably something like, if that happens, how do you escape out of a trunk type of thing? Okay. And that's something we can probably put in a social media type post. Yeah. A lot of the vehicles nowadays have the glow in the dark pull tab on the inside for that very reason. If not in case you get kidnapped, but just in case for whatever reason you get locked inside your trunk, at least it gives you a way out and you know how to get out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know I was trying to speed through our comments up front because I wanted to have time, but we talked, I mentioned very briefly the social media aspect, and the chief has been proactive with getting videos out on things like they had bicycle safety recently, and I know there were a couple, but those are things that I think the chief is planning to keep doing, in this coming year as well. So,
yeah, I try to focus on videos that really go with our way of life here in Ojai. So we did do a theft from vehicles, bicycle safety. I believe the last one we did was crosswalk safety, and it advised, it gave some training not only for pedestrians but also for drivers. A lot of times drivers don't realize what constitutes a crosswalk violation. You got to make sure that the person in the crosswalk is across the street safely before you proceed through, or else it turns into a violation. So it's important, things that we sometimes take for granted or don't realize, and it's good to kind of see it, a little training video, and we're going to develop a few more and put them out on social media as well, just so the public can check those out.
Thank you. And I see we have somebody raising their hand. It's Atticus Reyes. I'm going to bring you in now, and you'll have to unmute, I think.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Chief Rivera. My name is Atticus Reyes, Ojai resident. I just had a question about policies and procedures in response to folks who may be experiencing a mental health crisis. Are those calls that are automatically responded to by deputies who might be armed, or are there any talks or plans or procedures that can be responded to by an unarmed individual from either the Ojai Police Department or through the resources of the county sheriff? I was just wondering about that process, or if there are any internal communications about those type of situations. Thanks.
That's a very, very good question. I actually, Chief, just so you know, we're going through the questions now, and that's the question that a lot of people are asking. So I think if you want to take a couple minutes to talk about the mental health crisis team in response.
And Atticus, I think I met you during one of the council meetings. So it's nice to hear from you again. But all our deputies are trained in crisis intervention. So normally when there is a call, such as somebody suffering a mental breakdown or some type of mental health issue, we do respond to those calls, and we try to evaluate the situation, whether, depending on the care that they need. So we will respond and, like I said, evaluate it, try to engage the person and try to get them help. We've got resources that we can utilize. We have a crisis team that we can call, and if they're available, they can come out to assist us. But our priority for these type of calls is the well-being of the person in question. We need to either try to convince them to go to the hospital and seek help, or we'll get them over to a mental health facility so they can receive the help that they need. We don't want to take people like that to jail. That's not what they need. They need help. And like I said, every deputy is trained as a crisis intervention. We try to deal with it, every situation, with care and compassion. And even though, yeah, we are the first ones to respond to these type of calls, unfortunately, we deal with it the best we can.
Thank you. I'll double check those to I'm reading them to make sure we answered, each of those questions. I'll double check those in a moment. But we have a question about what are the top vehicle problems that need to be addressed? And I'll kind of quickly start on that one, because I said one of my goals would be focusing on traffic safety. And I think, like I said earlier, I think we're fortunate in a lot of ways that we do have, a safe community, but there's still accidents on occasion. There's still, we still have people speeding on occasion. I think one thing that we all see is there are more and more visitors that are using Google or Waze and driving on streets that probably didn't get a lot of people driving on them before. And so I think with just the, with all of those factors, there's things that I think that most people would say that one of the things that they would hope that we would be paying attention to is addressing traffic safety and trying to do what we can on those issues. And so for me, that's why traffic safety is a focus and a goal. And Chief, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, traffic safety is a big priority, you know, but it's kind of tough with two deputies who are patrolling the city itself. They have to kind of work that in as well. We do get a lot of traffic complaints, and we do the best we can to try to resolve those issues. You know, especially in the downtown area, we get a lot of traffic, especially on the weekends. Traffic accidents this past year, when you're comparing them to 2020, we did have an increase in traffic related accidents, but we were just below compared to 2019. 2020 was kind of an anomaly for the mere fact that we did have a you know, a shutdown of the cities, and traffic was very light for a few months, so that really impacted our traffic accidents. But it's really important for the deputies to get out there and do as much traffic enforcement as they can. I believe last year, 2021, we issued a total of 822 violations for traffic-related incidents. There was, I believe, about 50 to 60 for speed violations, and quite a few for stop sign violations. So the deputies are out there doing the best they can. So in between patrolling their beats, answering calls, they also try to do traffic enforcement as much as possible. I get out there every once in a while and do the same thing. So,
well, thank you for that. The next question I think is more of a like a policy question, but I think we should speak to it still because I saw it a couple times. Businesses are not, there are businesses in town that are not following county masking rules. How can these rules be enforced for COVID safety? And I think to start, Chief, I do believe that there's a policy decision by the Sheriff's Department regarding enforcement. And so do you want to just explain that a little bit?
Sure. So I know there's been a lot of public safety orders that were issued over the last couple of years, and one of them was a mask mandate. But we're not, as a department, we made a decision that we are not going to be enforcing these mask mandates. So basically, if we do get calls, and we have received calls regarding people not wanting to wear masks, it's our responsibility is to respond to these calls and basically keep the peace. Inform both parties, you know, one, the person who's not wearing the mask, that the business or whatever it may be is requiring for them to wear a mask if they want to be serviced, and you know, it's their choice if they want to put a mask on or not. We're not there to take anybody into custody. We're not doing that. We're just basically educating the public on the requirement, and they can make their own decision. And we'll stand by. Deputies will even offer them a mask if they like. But we'll stand by to keep the peace and make sure nothing escalates at that point.
And I think, is it correct to say that that's an order that went out across the Sheriff's Department, and you don't have the ability to, you know, to change that?
Correct.
Right. And so for us, you know, similarly, since we don't have really an enforcement arm for these, you know, it's a county health order. Although now that's been replaced by a state health order. And so for the cities, we don't have an enforcement tool. And only the cities that have their own police departments, which there's a couple in Ventura County, like Oxnard and Port Hueneme and Santa Paula. But so we don't have that enforcement arm. So we have been having code enforcement take out informational material and ask people to comply. But obviously, and this is not unique. I think this is the case across a lot of counties in Southern California right now. It's harder and harder to get that compliance, voluntarily, but we are still doing that. We created new informational material that we posted on our Facebook page this week and created posters of those that we're taking out to businesses when we get complaints. So it's definitely a challenge.
It is, and we've been actually pretty lucky here in the city where we do respond to calls like this, and the public's been actually very, they haven't been causing a major disturbance or anything like that. They've been pretty compliant. They either have the choice to wear a mask or leave, and they've been pretty good about that. So.
Okay, thank you. And so the next question, it relates to the foot patrol again, but it's a little more specific. The skate park is downtown. Kids ride to and from the skate park from homes. What will policing these areas by foot patrol mean? Is it fines for cyclists and skateboarders? And then so that's a question for you. This comment is for me, which is the bike trail needs better lighting for evening rides. So that's not one the police can respond to, but it's something that the city can look at and consider. But as far as the question goes for what does foot patrol mean at the skate parks and for kids, going back and forth to them?
What it means is an opportunity for the deputies to engage the kids that are there. There's been times where I have shown up to the skate park and I get a horde of kids that just kind of run up and start asking me questions about this, about that. And it's a great opportunity for the deputies to kind of engage the kids and also provide them some safety tips. A lot of times kids are out there, they don't have helmets on, and it's just a kind of a recipe for disaster. If they slip, fall, and hit their heads, it could be something pretty serious. So it's good to get the deputies out on foot, and they have the time to engage them and have a conversation with them, develop those relationships with the kids, and also the merchants. The merchants are probably they get kind of tired of seeing the kids running up and down on skateboards and stuff like that up the arcade, and it's a chance for the deputies to tell or educate the kids, hey, those are not allowed in the arcade. Mm-hmm. Fines that are posted there. As far as citations, it is a city ordinance. I would hate to start issuing a bunch of citations for kids riding skateboards or their bikes and stuff like that. My focus would be to educate the kids. If they see kids on the skateboards or on a bicycle in the arcade, you stop and talk to them for a minute. Hey, you know what? This is not allowed. Let's kind of be a little bit more considerate to the people that are walking around. So I'm kind of against on issuing citations for those type of things. But there are those rare cases where we may have to issue one, and we'll do that if we need to.
Yeah, I think to that point, I'll add that there will be an opportunity we expect there will be an opportunity for some public discussion related to part of that topic, which is that the city council recently talked about having an item on an upcoming agenda where they can discuss and hear back from the community any concerns related to bicycling and skateboarding through the arcade. So it's a little bit different. But there'll be an opportunity to talk a little bit about that coming up at a city council meeting. So, the next comment is from, he signed his name at the bottom, so I'm going to read his name. I haven't been reading names, but I'm going to read his name on this and tell him I appreciate the comment. So Brian Berman, who is on our City of Peace team, he stated, tonight is an important step. Having the community members have access to have this type of interaction. And I wanted to read that because I agree. It wasn't optimal circumstances, but that both the chief and I said, we need to do this and we need to get started and get it, building that interaction. And so Brian said, as a City of Peace leader, what can he and the team do to help create a better relationship with the city and the police department? What are the needs that community members can focus on to support the city and the police department? So it's a big question.
Yeah.
I think one thing to Brian and his team is, they had put in the work to get the city declared a City of Peace, which we have on our city limits sign. So first off, to Brian and the team is thank you for for the hard work on doing all that. I think I'll start and then I'll turn it over to the chief. But the thing that I'm looking for, and I think the chief is too, and it was part of the idea of this meeting, is we want to start building that communication and that engagement. And so I think by attending tonight and commenting tonight, you're doing your part. But I think we definitely will look for opportunities to do more, and to the peace. The City of Peace team, will work with you guys on some of the upcoming things like Ojai Day and things like that to start building that connection even better. So, Chief, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I completely agree with you. I think it's good having various types of events. I know last year we didn't have our National Night Out, which is something that you and I have discussed about doing. Which I think is an awesome opportunity to get the community out and engage them in conversation on such a night, and just getting some resources out. And I think a lot of it is just having an understanding what the community needs, and the deputies need to know this as well. It's getting that understanding from the community, what their needs are. And also maybe the community understanding what the job of the deputies are. And we can do that by asking questions in these type of settings and in community events out in public. And this next year, the more events we have, I'm going to try to get the deputies out there more often. So so we can get them in a different setting, and they're able to kind of engage the public a little bit better. So.
Thank you. Yeah, and I've made a standing request with the chief to have the horseback mounted police anytime we have an event. He knows I bug him for that. So, okay, so next question, and it's a longer one. I'm going to try to read through it quickly. Do you support the creation of civilian oversight of Ojai Sheriff's deputies? And then it has some facts I'll read. A grand jury report produced in 1998 recommended that some form of oversight be created, but we are unsure whether the Ventura County Sheriff's Department implemented any reforms. Civilian trust in law enforcement is at an all-time low. The only way forward is to give the community more control over public safety. This is in keeping with Sir Robert Pill's second principle of policing. Due to the lack of justice that everyday citizens have had at the hands of the court system and the lack of successful prosecutions for officer misconduct, this is a well overdue measure to be taken. One deputy, and I don't know the name, so I won't read the name, but a deputy is referenced from Camarillo, is just one deputy like this is just one too many. We need to ensure we have a system which would prevent a bad cop from hurting the public. And so I guess there's a lot of information, but I guess the basic question would be, the possibility of creating a civilian oversight committee of some sort. And I think maybe kind of knowing a little bit about the Sheriff's Department, maybe explaining what is in place now would also help to, or what processes are in place now would help to answer that question.
Yeah, so what we have in place right now, I mean, if there is any misconduct or complaint on misconduct, depending on the severity of the incident, It will either be looked into at the station level, or it can be sent over to our internal affairs department, who do a very thorough investigation of any incident that is brought to their attention, as well as the station level. We review reports, we interview the people that were involved, we look at body cam video to see what took place, and we make a determination of whether there was some misconduct that was taken care of. And if there is, then the staff member or the deputy or whoever it may be will obviously be disciplined in some manner, whether it's retraining or some form of discipline or both. So, you know, if it goes through the internal affairs route, there are detectives there that look at each case and they investigate it pretty similarly. They'll interview everybody who is involved. Again, they'll look at all the body cam video that's available to them, and they will make a determination on any misconduct that took place.
And I guess the first question was, you know, about the possibility of creating a civilian oversight at the for Ojai. And I think, Chief, that that is not something that you or I, well, it's not something that you would be able to do. I think that would have to be a policy decision by someone in your chain of command, the sheriff.
Correct. And you know, it's happened before where there's deputies that have committed some serious incidents, and they were dealt with appropriately. They were either fired or terminated, or you know, or some other form of discipline. We don't take this kind of stuff lightly, for the mere fact that you know, we want to ensure that the public trusts us in investigating these type of incidents, and we're going to deal with it as appropriately as we can. And like I said, it could end up in a termination, which there have been some incidents where they have been terminated. There have been some incidents where a deputy, depending on the severity of an incident, has been prosecuted. You know, so we don't take these things lightly. We think they're important enough to really look into. If you're going to bring it to our attention, yes.
I will note there just that the city, as part of the contract review, we had talked at one point about whether there would be some sort of local oversight or local review. One of the things we've said in the past was we've actually kind of had a local review at a council meeting where we had some different incidences where the city council wanted to understand what happened and wanted the public to understand what happened. So we did have on a few occasions in the few years I've been here, we've had situations where we kind of did that informally at a city council meeting. And so I think that's something that, not being able to speak for the city council, but I think it's something that would be, that some form of review would be, you know, supported by the city council. But again, it's something that would have to be worked on with the sheriff's department long term. So
Correct.
Yeah. And so the next question, can the public access training materials for crisis intervention that the deputies receive?
I'm not sure what training materials. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, so we'll.
I know our policies and procedures are online on the sheriff's webpage. I'm not sure what's included as far as CIT training.
Okay, so because I don't know if this person wants their name said, I won't say it, but if that person wants to email our email address that's on all the flyers tonight and give us their email address, then we can follow up and
definitely
respond to that.
Oh, definitely.
Next question, how do Ojai deputies respond to calls on homeless or unhoused individuals?
The homeless situation has always been a challenge. I don't know if anybody has the right answer on how to resolve this issue. But because of the homeless folks that we have out in the county area and also in the city as well, in order to better manage them, what I've done is I've given 2 deputies a responsibility to be homeless liaison deputies. And what that means is when they've been trained to work with different county entities to provide services for those that are homeless and are willing to accept assistance. The biggest problem is a lot of times the deputies will make contact with a homeless individual and they refuse to accept any assistance. So the deputies will probably document the incident and maybe try to return back and try to convince them to receive services. So these 2 deputies will respond to any homeless related calls in the city or in the county area. I've got 2 of them that are trained. They both work day shift and they are on opposite shifts. So I will have a deputy on every single day of the week. They did a lot of work with the one-stop facility on North Ventura Avenue with the large amount of homeless folks that were out there. They worked with the county, the board supervisors, Matt Levere's office, and they really try to assist a lot of those folks. And we've had a number of success stories out of that area. Now, there's going to be calls for service, that pop up here in the city. They'll respond to those as well. Even though they're not in the county, they will still utilize the county resources to try to help them. And I've told the deputies, hey, if you need to give them a ride down to Ventura or to seek assistance, I'm not opposed to that at all. Whatever we can do to accommodate them and treat them with some dignity and respect, and try to convince them to seek help. And as long as they accept, I mean, that's a big step forward for them. And hopefully they continue on receiving assistance and get them out of the situation that they're in. But we do encounter a lot of folks that are very resistant. They don't want to be bothered. They like the way they live. And that's just them, It's unfortunate, but we can't force them to receive help. We can't force them to change the way they want to live. Mm-hmm. But we do what we can.
Thank you. Next question, and I think we have about 3 or 4 left, and I would say if anybody wants to get one in before the end here, you may want to submit now or raise your hand. But the next question is, what happens to people arrested for being either under the influence or possessing illegal drugs? And then the comment is that it seems like a lot of the issues, the crimes in our police blotter are those 2 issues, under the influence or possession of illegal drugs.
Well, as folks probably know, there's possession of like drugs like methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, things like that. They used to be a felony, and you would get booked in the jail, and that has since changed over the years, and it's now a misdemeanor. A lot of times we don't even book them in a jail if they're UI drugs or in possession of drugs, which is kind of unfortunate, because we see a lot of folks out there that are addicts, and we can't even keep them in jail long enough for them to sober up and take part of any programs that the custody facilities are offering, like NA. Those are a lot of some of the programs that are offered there, AA. So it's kind of almost a revolving door. The deputies continue to arrest folks for being under the influence. It's pretty dangerous, especially now with the introduction of fentanyl. We've seen a lot of overdoses that occur. I believe last year in the city we had about 7 incidents, excuse me, where there were overdoses, and 6 of them were related to fentanyl, which is an extremely dangerous drug. But a lot of times, like I said, we arrest them, and even if we take them to jail, they're right back out within a few hours. They're not being held in jail, which is a problem. They don't get an opportunity to kind of sober up and kind of get their wits to them and partake of any of the programs that are offered.
Thank you. How does the police department respond to racial harassment? A few Black Ojai residents have had disgusting slurs yelled at them at Libby Park and in Miners Oaks just for being Black in the past few months. How do you suggest handling moments like these of witnessing this kind of behavior, this kind of terrible behaviors? Yeah,
I think if those incidents are happening, they need to call us right away so we can come out and deal with it. If there's a crime that was committed because of someone's race or whatever it may be, we're going to deal with it appropriately. That should not be happening in our communities. Excuse me. So it's important that we get called on a lot of these incidents.
Yeah, so, I'll second that one real quick, Chief, because I know you know this, but there's been a couple times recently where I saw something and I called over, and you pointed out, well, no, you're the first person that called. Nobody else.
Correct.
Called. And I think a lot of times people see things and think somebody else must be calling it in. But I think the message the chief told me, and I think he means it, is don't be afraid to call, because don't somebody else is calling. So.
Yeah, and that goes, and I can get into a little bit on that, is, a lot of folks don't know, like, well, should I call or should I not call? Mm-hmm. Is it that big of a deal? If it doesn't seem right to you and you think maybe something might be afoul, call us. Mm-hmm. If you think it's an emergency, dial 911 and we'll get somebody out there right away. Let us go out there and evaluate the situation and determine whether or not there's a crime that's been committed. And if so, we'll deal with it at that point. But the biggest problem I get is I'll get complaints about, oh, I saw this or I saw that. And my first question is, did you call the police? No, I didn't want to bother anybody and this and that. The other. You're not bothering us. That's what we're out there for, to answer calls and make sure that things don't escalate and deal with any significant issues that do happen. But we got to get called. And that kind of goes into, if you see something, say something. If you hear something that doesn't sound right, give us a call to come on and check it out. Especially at nighttime. That's usually when a lot of crime occurs is at night. Excuse me. So if you hear something late at night and you're not sure what it is, give us a call. I'd rather a deputy show up and determine, hey, it was nothing, it was a neighbor's cat or whatever it may be, than waking up the next morning and discovering that something happened, a crime occurred. Yeah, we could have done something to prevent that. So.
Thank you. What kind of racial sensitivity training, similar to the mental health training, does the Sheriff's Department take?
So we do go through some training at the academy, as well as during, I believe, every year or a couple years, where we do some training as well. Sensitivity training. I know recently we did some training called Bias Sync, where deputies can do some online training on different subjects regarding race and discrimination and things like that. So it's done on a regular basis. Excuse me. To ensure that this stuff doesn't happen within our department, within our station, and to make the deputies aware there are consequences if any of this stuff does happen.
Okay. Thank you. I think we have 3 left as of now, and I think we'll try to be respectful to everybody's time. We'll try to make sure we get through all these before 7:30. I think we'll try to end it there. But is there a list of what citizens can do to help our deputies prevent crime and disturbances and lower overall crime?
There's not a list per se, but we can put out information on what the public can do to try to prevent crime and keep things from escalating. It's better that they call us instead of putting themselves in the middle of something. If they try to intervene, I'd rather they just call us. A lot of times our mere presence will calm a situation down and keep it from escalating. And, we're better equipped to deal with those situations.
Thank you. And I think
we will use social media to put out a lot more information on what folks can do to prevent crime.
I have 2 that came in through that email address. There's a few more that are related to the mask question that we already answered. But so the other 2 is one person says that they have worked for the Peace Officers Standards and Training, which is post-certification, as a subject matter expert, and has also worked with the Oxnard Police Command staff on diversity training. With the tensions between police and citizens they protect growing and the added pressure of trying to budget for the city of Ojai, what considerations have we taken in regards to establishing a social worker program that would be dispatched to nonviolent calls instead of armed officers? I believe this could be a 3-way win where the city can possibly save money, police and community relations can improve, and police officers can stick to their intended purpose, protecting us from serious and dangerous crimes. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And so that probably there's probably a little bit of that for you and a little for me, but I'll let you go ahead.
So the question being about having social workers respond to calls.
Yeah, so I'll start because I think the first question is is kind of what have we done to do that. So I'll speak to that, and then if you want to speak to a little bit to how and if you think that could work maybe. But I think for the city, the comment noted that right now. And what we spoke about earlier is that the city is paying a certain amount for police services right now. And we were looking for the opportunity to update our contract and make sure that those costs were fair. And we thought that if that were to happen, we probably would save, if the proportion of some of those costs got allocated the way we think they should be, that we would save a little bit of money. And so we haven't had discussions of what we would do with that because it still hasn't happened. But I do think, in different conversations I've had with the sheriff, just trying to explore ideas. A couple of the ideas were, what if we could have some of these programs that would reduce how many calls the sheriff's department gets from our residents and take some of the load off of the officers by, some of these calls that maybe shouldn't have to be answered by the officers. Could we partner in some way to identify some of these programs, and maybe that could be a place where we find some savings and we redeploy those resources to where we need them. And so I know that's a long answer, but that I think is the city's position where if we get to that point, I think we would look at, maybe some different programs and things we could do. We're just not at that point yet. And so, Chief, I guess for you, since you're not involved in the budgeting portion, I guess maybe if you want to speak a little bit just on, the social worker programs, and if there's anything like that at the Sheriff's Department or anything that, that is being worked on.
As far as having social workers working with our staff, our deputies, we don't have anything in place at this point like that. We do have a crisis intervention team that will come out to assist the deputies in any intervention type calls that they respond to. I don't know if them responding first to a situation would be ideal, because they don't know what they're getting themselves into, and the deputy will respond and evaluate the situation, and they're trained to de-escalate a lot of these calls and get it to the point where they can call a social worker in to continue to provide care to the individual. And many of these social workers would rather have a deputy there with them in case things go sideways, and for safety reasons. But currently we don't have anything in place where we do have social workers at our station or that can respond out directly to calls such as that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and we'll remind everybody that we are looking for feedback on ideas and things they'd like to see, and even if it's something maybe that hasn't been done before or something that we aren't thinking about, I think it's really just helpful to hear from the community what they are thinking of, and maybe they're seeing something that we're not seeing. So I appreciate that comment, and after this meeting, we're going to post some things where we'll still take some comments, and so keep them coming. I think this is the last question. Actually, it's a series of questions. It's about, let me see, 5 questions. I think it's pretty long, so I'm going to try to summarize, and I apologize to the person if I leave anything out, but I think the gist of it is related to traffic enforcement and traffic fines, asking how much is generated each year in moving violations, how much of those fines go to the city versus the Sheriff's Department. Let me see. If it goes somewhere else, why, and based on what. And I think that's pretty much it in summary. Yeah, so I think that's it. And to the person that wrote these, we'll try to send a response a little more thorough. But so I guess the gist of it is, how many, I think we can respond to this by answering, how many citations do we typically write, and how many, how much ballpark we think that generates. I don't know that you or I will have that number off the top of our head, but is it a regular occurrence, that we issue the traffic citations?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think we wrote a total of 820 some violations last year.
What was that? What did you say? 820 some?
822, I believe.
Okay, so about 3 a day, 2 or 3 a day?
Yeah, about 2, 3 a day. So it's not a lot, but we don't have a regular traffic officer strictly assigned to do traffic enforcement. We have utilized motor units from some of the other stations to work up in Ojai on an overtime basis to do some traffic enforcement on selective weekends. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's left to the deputy to do traffic enforcement. They also handle all their all the traffic accidents in the city, unless it's a fatal accident. which unfortunately we did have one in 2019 and 2020. Those cases are handled, we call out Camarillo, the traffic enforcement unit from Camarillo. They're investigators, they're trained in significant traffic accidents, such as fatal accidents. They will come out and spend numerous hours detailing a specific scene and drawing up sketches, diagrams, and doing a lot of evaluation on the vehicles that were involved to determine what caused the accident. Those are very time consuming, and those are left for the specialized unit at Camarillo PD to assist us with. But as far as the other items, those are usually by the patrol deputy. As far as the fines and what percentage comes to the city and the sheriff's department and things like that, I don't have those figures. The fines are, you know, once you get to court, they can be reduced. There is no set fine, but you know, the judge has the ability to reduce fines for any violation. But as far as the breakup of costs or the fines, where they go at that point, I don't have that information. I'm sure I can probably get that, and I can reach out to the person inquiring and provide that information to them.
Yeah, and I have their email address, so I'll work with you to
okay, sounds good.
And I think that's the last question we received, and it's just about 7:30. And so, Chief, I want to thank you on behalf of the city and the city council and the community, because I know that you aren't feeling great, but I think we all appreciate that you still made this happen. So thank you very much for doing this.
No, thank you for accommodating me on Zoom. Like I mentioned, this is very important for the city, and a big step for all of us, the community, the city, and the PD, to come together and some ideas, and we look forward to 2022 and putting out a lot of positive and good information out there to the public. And I look forward to a lot more engagement opportunities in the community. So should be a good year.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be announcing some things like, and I'll share my screen here for a second. So we'll be announcing some things coming up. Let me see, I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Well, the point or the information's there, but we'll be announcing some things coming up, like some more events, the Coffee with the Chief events, and some of the different community events that we're working on. And so we wanted to kind of wrap it up by saying that this was not just a one and done, we're here for a couple minutes and then we don't think about this anymore. Both the chief and I and the entire city council really wants to focus on building the community engagement between the city, the police department, and the community. And so we're going to be working on that moving forward. Some of the next steps will be we'll put together a summary of kind of what we heard tonight and some of that feedback. We'll make that available on our website and Facebook page and share that with the community. We'll also at that time give the opportunity for more feedback. So if more ideas come to you, we encourage everybody to keep giving that feedback. And then the next real public discussion will be we're planning in February, probably the second council meeting that month, that we will have, we will receive the feedback from the community, and we'll continue our contract review and working towards updating that contract, which for us, police services is very important, and we want to reflect that with an updated contract that starts to include some of this community feedback and updating some of those issues. So lastly, like the chief and I both said, is that's not the end of it. We're going to be having some different events, coffees with the chief, and community conversations, and try to keep that connection going with the community moving forward. So I really appreciate it. I think we had a solid. I think everybody that was watching stayed with us till the end, and I know that's hard to do on an hour-and-a-half meeting on a weekday night, but we really appreciate it. And on behalf of the chief and the city of Ojai and the city council, thank you all, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.